The last decade of the Montreal Canadiens have been a roller coaster, from losing seasons to rebuilding to making a Stanley Cup final. Here's every season from 2015 to now of the Montreal Canadiens. I hope you enjoy. The 2015-2016 Montreal Canadiens were an anomaly. They started off the season hot on a nine-game winning streak, only losing the first game in their 10th game of the season, a 5-1 defeat against the Vancouver Canucks. They started their season against their bitter rivals, the Toronto Maple Leafs, who they beat 3-1. Carey Price was injured October 29, 2015 in a loss against the Edmonton Oilers. He will not play again until November against the New York Islanders, which was a big blow for the Montreal Canadiens. However, the good times would not last as Carey Price reevaluated his injury against the New York Rangers 5 days later on November 25th. At the time, Carey Price was only expected to miss 6 weeks, but that did not happen, and he did not make his return in net for the Habs until April. The Habs finished the 2015-2016 season with a 38-38-6 record, good for 6th in the Atlantic Division and 13th in the Eastern Conference. The record at the Bell Center was actually pretty decent for the amount of injuries that they had. The final record at home was 23-16. However, the record away from home was not bad, but could be better. They were 16-22-3. The leading goal scorers for the Montreal Canadiens this season were Alex Galchenyuk and Max Pacioretty, who each scored 30 goals. On to 2016-2017. The 2016-2017 Habs were a different story. They won the Atlantic Division with a 47-29-9 record, good for first in the Atlantic and fourth in the Eastern Conference. They finally had their star goaltender back, Carey Price. The Habs dominated at home, winning 24 games, only losing 12. They also dominated away from the Bell Center with a record of 23-14. And their goals for was 226, and their goals against were 200, which isn't bad. Proves how good Carey Price was in his prime. Max Pacioretty was the Habs' leading goal scorer with 35 goals and 67 points. Alexander Radulov had the most assists for the team with 36. Goals against average was Carey Price with 2.23. He also led the team in wins, which isn't a surprise because it's Carey frickin' Price. Next, the Habs would make the playoffs, but did not make it far, losing 4-2 to the bitter New York Rangers and were eliminated from the playoffs. But overall, a good season for the Habs. However, the good times did not continue into next season, which was the first full season under Claude Julien, and the Habs failed to make the playoffs for the second time in 3 years, finishing the 2017-2018 season with a pitiful 29 wins, 40 losses, and 13 overtime losses. They were 6th in the Atlantic Division and 13th in the Eastern Conference. Sorry, my bad, they were 14th in the Eastern Conference, which is even worse. The record at the Bell Center was actually above 500 at 18-14-9. Meanwhile, the record on the road was a very pitiful 11-26-4. The captain was Brendan Gallagher, led the team in goals with 31. Meanwhile, Jonathan Drouin led the team in assists with 33. Carey Price again led the team in wins with Carey Price led the team with wins at 16, and Antti Niemi had a 2.46 ERA. goals against average, which also led the team. The 2018-2019 Habs failed to also make the playoffs, but they had a strong season. And it also marked the first time since 2000-2001 where the Habs have failed to make the playoffs in back-to-back seasons. 96 points was also tied and joined the record for the most points by an NHL team that didn't qualify for the playoffs. The Habs' final record was 44 wins, 30 losses, and 8 ties. They finished 4th in the Atlantic Division and 9th in the Eastern Conference, but failed to make the playoffs by 2 points to the Columbus Blue Jackets. They had another strong season at home, finishing with a home record of 25 wins, 12 losses, and 4 ties. Meanwhile, on the road, they had 19 wins, 18 losses, and 4 ties. Their captain was Shea Weber, who they got in a trade for PK Subban. Brandon Gallagher had another strong season as he led the team in goals with 33 in back-to-back seasons. Max Domi led the team in assists with 44, and Max Domi also led the team in points with 72. Carey Price led the team in wins with 35, while also posting a 2.49 goals against average. Things did not get better for the Habs in 2019-2020 as they again failed to make the playoffs. They also fired Carl Julian on August 13th and replaced him with Kirk Muller. The Habs finished 2019-2020 with a record of 31 wins, 31 losses, and 9 overtime points, which is good for 5th in the Atlantic and 13th in the Eastern Conference. For the first time in a while, the Habs had a losing record at the Bell Center, finishing the season with a record of 14 wins, 17 losses at the Bell Center, and on the road they finished with 17 wins, 14 losses, so they had a better road record than they did at home for the first time in a while. The leader for goals scored was Brendan Gallagher and Thomas Tatar, who both scored 22 goals each. Thomas Tatar also led the team in assists and points. The season was cut short due to COVID-19, so the Habs did not make the playoffs. Carey Price had the most wins with 27, and Caden Primo had the most goals against average with a 2.52 goals against average. The 2020-2021 season was a lot different for the Habs. They were in the North Division, which was the All-Canadian Division, in which they finished 4th in with a final record of 24 wins, 21 losses, and 11 overtime points. They finished with a home record of 13 wins and 11 losses, and a road record of 11 wins and 10 losses. Tyler Toffoli led the team in goals with 28. Jeff Petrie led the team in assists with 30. And Tyler Toffoli led the team in points with 44. Wins were again led by Carey Price, who had 12 wins with a 2.64 goals against average. This is also the team that made it to the first Stanley Cup final for the Habs since 1993, in which they lost to Tampa Bay 4-1. 2021-2022 was the beginning of the rebuild for Montreal Canadiens. They fired Mark Bergevin and replaced him with Kent Hughes, and they finished the 2021-2022 season dead last in the Atlantic Division and 15th in the Eastern Conference with a final record of 22 wins and 49 losses and a home record of 11 wins and 26 losses and a road record of 11 wins and 23 losses. Cole Caulfield led the team in scoring with 23 goals. Nick Suzuki led in assists with 40, and Nick Suzuki also led in points with 60. The team was led in wins by Jake Allen with 9, and the goals against average for the team was led by Andrew Hammond with a 2.40 goals against average. The 2022-2023 season was again another step in the rebuild as the Habs finished dead last in the Atlantic Division and 15th in the Eastern Conference with a final record of 31 wins and 45 losses. They finished with a final record at the Bell Center of 17 wins and 21 losses, and on the road their final record was 14 wins and 24 losses. The team was led in scoring by their two young guns, Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield. Both scored 26 goals. Nick Suzuki also tallied 40 assists for 60 points. The team was led in wins by Sam Montembeault, who had 16 wins, and also led the team in goals against average with a 3.42 goals against average. 23-24 was another rough season for the Habs as they finished dead last in the Atlantic Division again and 15th in the Eastern Conference with a final record of 30 wins and 36 losses, and the final record at home was 16 wins and 20 losses. The final record on the road was 14 wins and 16 losses. Nick Suzuki led the team in goals with 33. Mike Matheson led the team in assists with 51, and points were led by Nick Suzuki, who had 71 points. Goals against the average was led by Caden Primo, who had a 2.99 goals against average, and the team was led in wins by Sam Montembeault, who had 16 wins. The 2024-2025 season was a good one for the Habs. They made the playoffs on the final near the end of the season after beating the Carolina Hurricanes. The Habs finished the 2024-2025 season with a final record of 40 wins and 31 losses, which is good for 5th in the Atlantic and 8th in the Eastern Conference. The final home record for the Habs was 23 wins and 12 losses, and the final road record was 17 wins and 19 losses. The team was led in scoring by Cole Caulfield, who had 37 goals, and Lane Hudson led the team in points with 60, earning him the Rookie of the Year trophy, the first Rookie of the Year trophy since Ken Dryden in the 70s. The team was led in points by their captain Nick Suzuki, who had 89. Sam Montembeault led the team in wins with a final total of 31 wins, and Jakub Dobes led the team with 2.74 goals against average. The Habs' playoff effort was good. They won one game against the highly favored Washington Capitals before they were eliminated by the Capitals in the first round.